Hi, this is Tomek from W Yachts. Welcome to the third episode of our series on yacht registration and VAT in Europe. Please subscribe our channel to be on time with all new videos. Today we will focus only on one country, Malta, if you've ever heard that. VAT on yachts in Malta can be reduced to about 5%. The largest super yachts in Europe sail under the Maltese flag, and that it is the most popular commercial flag in the EU. Then, in this episode, I will explain step by step what is true, what is a myth, and how this system works today. An important note right away. What I am talking about is not individual tax advice. This is educational material designed to give you an understanding of the system so that you can speak knowledgeably with a lawyer or tax advisor. If you need professional advice, contact me. Let's start with the question, why Malta at all? In short, it is a fully fledged EU flag state, meaning a yacht under the Maltese flag is treated as European. It can freely sail throughout the Union. Malta has very friendly tax regulations for shipping, including commercial yachts. There is a well-developed commercial yacht code, a safety and technical requirements code specifically for commercial yachts. The leasing system and VAT deferral practically allow avoiding paying more than 20% VAT when purchasing a yacht. Additionally, there is low effective taxation on charter income, even around 5% or tonnage tax instead of traditional corporate income tax, CIT. The result? Ship owners from all over the world, owners of super yachts, charter companies, funds, are massively choosing Malta. Before we proceed to how the system works today, we need to understand where this famous 5% VAT rate originally came from. Until around 2020, Malta used a very simple model. A Maltese company purchased a yacht. A leasing agreement was made with the user, and the Maltese tax authority assumed in advance what percentage of the yacht's time was spent in EU waters, and what outside the Union VAT was only charged on this EU portion. For example, for a large yacht, it was assumed that only 30% of the time was spent in EU waters. The VAT rate in Malta is 18%. So 30% times 18% equals 5.4% effective VAT on the yacht's value. And this is exactly the famous VAT 5% in Malta flag. The problem is that the European Commission considered that such a flat rate, without considering where the yacht actually sails, is too advantageous and not in accordance with the spirit of the VAT directive. The Union clearly stated, you can apply the use and enjoyment rule, meaning taxing only the actual use within the EU, but you must prove this, not assume it from a table. From that moment, three key changes occurred. The end of automatic flat rates. There is no longer an official table, 30%, 40%, 50%. The requirement to document yacht movements. You need to show a logbook, GPS, AIS, how much time the yacht spent in the EU and how much outside the Union. The necessity to adjust VAT after the leasing period ends. Initially, you can operate on an assumption, but at the end, you must reconcile it with reality. And now, the most important, the system still works, but it is more tightened. That is, you can still have an effective VAT rate around 5 to 9%, but only if your yacht actually spends most of its time outside the EU, not on the French Riviera. Before we proceed with leasing, we need to distinguish two things that are often linked but are not the same on Malta. Registration of the yacht as a commercial vessel, that is, entry into the register, compliance with the commercial yacht code, inspections, crew, certificates. Tax structure, that is, who owns the yacht, who uses it, how leasing is structured, how VAT is calculated, how income from chartering is treated. Commercial registration gives you the status of a working yacht, for example, a charter yacht. The tax structure determines how much VAT and income tax you actually pay. On Malta, these two worlds are well organized but require meeting a number of conditions. Initially, registration. When we talk about a commercial yacht under the Maltese flag, we usually refer to a vessel over 15 meters in length used to carry a maximum of 12 passengers without transporting cargo. That is, a classic yacht, not a cargo ship. Malta has its own commercial yacht code for this. In simplified terms, yachts under 24 meters have somewhat simpler technical requirements, less bureaucracy. Yachts over 24 meters fall under a more demanding regime, annual inspections, mandatory engineer on board, full compliance with international safety conventions, and now, more specifically, if your yacht is less than 24 meters but more than 15 meters, You can still register it as a commercial vessel, meaning it undergoes a technical inspection, so-called survey, safety equipment, fire extinguishing systems, rescue measures, radio, navigation, construction are checked, and based on this transport, Malta issues a certificate of compliance as a commercial yacht. Such a certificate is valid for 5 years. But in the meantime, the yacht must undergo an intermediate inspection. For smaller vessels, these inspections are simpler and cheaper than for large superyachts. If we talk about a true superyacht, over 24 meters, the full regime begins. The requirements include, among others, annual technical inspections, full compliance with SOLA/MARPOL/load lines regulations, depending on tonnage, appropriate rescue equipment, alarm systems, fire protection, safety management system, often based on standards similar to ISM, minimum crew, so-called minimum safe manning certificate, practically a captain with appropriate qualifications, plus a mechanical engineer and further crew. In return for this, you get a fully legitimate, respected EU commercial flag, the ability to conduct charters across the Mediterranean Sea, and a good reputation in the eyes of port state control. Let's now move on to what interests everyone the most. How to make the VAT on a yacht not 20%, but closer to 5 to 9%. I will describe this in steps, as it is actually done in practice. Step 1. A company in Malta. First, you establish a company in Malta. This company will be the owner of the yacht, will register for VAT, will become the lessor, and will sign charter agreements. The Maltese company is crucial because it is the legal entity that the tax office accepts as the party to the transaction. Step 2. Purchasing a yacht through a company. Secondly, the company buys the yacht. If you buy a yacht from a seller in another EU country, the seller does not charge VAT because it is a so-called intra-community supply. The Maltese company itself calculates 18% VAT in its declaration and immediately deducts it, net effect. No actual VAT payment at the start. If you buy the yacht from outside the EU, you can use the VAT deferral procedure upon import to Malta. In some models, the bank guarantee amounts to only a fraction of the yacht's value under normal conditions. VAT on importing a yacht into the EU would be a huge one-time cost. Step 3. Lease agreement with the user. Thirdly, the Maltese company enters into a lease agreement with you. You, as an individual or your other company, are the lessee, i.e., the user. Such an agreement specifies the value of the yacht, the duration of the lease, the amount of installments, the final buyout value, the declared usage model, including the assumption that the yacht will spend a significant part of the time sailing outside the European Union. This is the key. If the yacht will mainly be docked in Saint-Tropez and Porto Cervo, then there is no question of an effective 5% VAT. Step 4. Pre-approval from the Maltese VAT office. The next step that distinguishes Malta from others. You apply to the Maltese tax office for permission to use the use and enjoyment model in leasing. This means the authority must confirm that your company has a genuine character, that the leasing structure complies with regulations, and that the planned way of using the yacht justifies the application of the partial VAT method. Only after obtaining this approval do you start accounting for leasing VAT. Step 5. Faktyczne żeglowanie i dokumentacja. Od tego momentu, na co do tej pory nie było wymagane, zaczyna się musisz faktycznie żeglować i dokumentować wszystko. That means keeping a decklog, recording port entries and exits, storing data from GPS and AIS, and possibly having reports from tracking systems at the end of the year or after the lease ends. Based on this, the percentage of time the yacht was in the Union versus outside is calculated. Step 6. W rezultacie VAT wynosi 5 do 9%. Załóżmy, że Twój jacht spędza 70% czasu poza Unią Europejską, na przykład Karaiby, Turcja, Czarnogóra, a 30% czasu w porcie w Unii Europejskiej, Francja, Italy, Spain. Currently, the Maltese VAT rate is 18%. If the authority approves such a proportion, you only calculate VAT on 30% of the leasing installments, i.e. 30% times 18% equals 5.4% effective VAT rate on the value of the yacht. If the yacht spends 50-50, the proportion will be different and the effective VAT will be higher, e.g. around 9%. If it mostly sails within the EU, then you are effectively approaching the full 18%. It may seem complicated, but the logic is simple. The more time spent outside the European Union, the lower the VAT. Step 7. End of leasing and VAT paid. At the end of the leasing agreement, you usually have the right to purchase the yacht. You then pay the final value plus 18% VAT on this final amount. The most important thing is that throughout the entire leasing period, you paid VAT only on use within the EU. The outside the union part was exempt, and you benefited from VAT deferral when purchasing importing the yacht after settling everything. The Maltese authority issues a confirmation that VAT has been settled in accordance with the regulations. In practice, the yacht has a VAT-paid status in the Union at a much lower actual cost than if you bought it directly in Germany, Francia, lub Polska. VAT is one thing, but Malta has two very strong arguments. CIT around 5%. The standard CIT rate in Malta is 35%. But the tax refund system works in such a way that, effectively, for many companies, it reduces to about 5%. This means that income from chartering, after settling the refund and tax credit system, can be taxed at a level much lower than in typical EU countries. So, if a commercial yacht earns from chartering, Malta is a very friendly place for settling such activities. Tonnage tax instead of CIT. For part of the structure, it is also possible to switch to the tonnage tax system. In practice, this means that you do not pay the traditional income tax on shipping profits. You pay a small fixed annual fee depending on the yacht's tonnage. For large charter units, this is a very attractive solution, especially if the yacht is used intensively. Besides leasing, there is also the issue of VAT on charters. If the yacht is registered commercially in Malta and the charter begins in Malta, part of the voyage takes place outside EU waters, then VAT on the charter service can also be calculated only on the European part. So again, we return to the use and enjoyment principle. Additionally, Malta has introduced a reduced VAT rate on some short-term charters, which further increases the attractiveness of this flag in the charter segment. It sounds beautiful, but we also need to honestly say when Malta can be a problem. The risks are mainly three. Lack of real activity in Malta. If a company in Malta is just a mailbox without a real presence and all operations are actually in another country, the authorities may challenge this yacht registered as commercial but used solely privately. If you declare chartering, leasing, commercial activity, but in practice only sail with family. Sooner or later, some authority, whether Maltese or from another country, may consider this tax evasion lack of onboard documentation from yacht sailing. If your effective VAT rate is based on the fact that you sail outside the EU and you cannot prove this, you have a problem. In such a case, the authority will assume that you mainly sailed within the European Union. And then the entire effect of 5 to 9% VAT simply disappears. Let's summarize who Malta makes the most sense for. For yacht owners who truly sail outside the EU, e.g., the season in the Mediterranean Sea, the Caribbean season, Turkey, Montenegro, for yachts intended for commercial charter purposes, for structures where the company crew documentation are properly organized, and it can be demonstrated that this is a real activity, not a shell company for VAT savings. Conversely, if you are an EU resident, mainly want to have a yacht for private use in Europe, do not plan genuine charter activity. It is often safer to pay VAT, register the yacht as private with VAT paid, and have peace of mind, rather than pretending to be commercial and risking inspection and penalties. And this is Malta in a nutshell. Actually, in a long one, because the topic is really complex. In the next episode, we will compare Malta with Cyprus, Poland, Italy, and Croatia, show where it is better to register a private yacht and where a commercial one, and for which owner profile, which flag makes the most sense. If this episode was valuable to you, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and tell me which topic you want to explore further, whether leasing, crew, or perhaps exotic flags like the Cayman Islands and the Marshalls. If you need detailed advice, contact me. You will find the details in the video description. See you on the water and in the next episode of W Yachts.